water vapor escaped, rain started coming, the earth started cooling down because a lot of water bodies got created. So there are various galaxies that are present. Among them, Milky Way is the one which is important because the earth comes under the, or earth is present in the Milky Way galaxy. Oxygen, carbon dioxide and water is very essential for life forms to get formed. In our body, we have organic molecules which are non-living such as proteins, DNA, RNA and all that. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session for class 12 biology. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty. So in this session, which is session 1 of chapter 6 evolution, we will learn about the origin of life forms, that is various theories that have sprung up around how exactly the life forms existed on this planet. So we all know about Earth, right? So Earth is several billion years ago and Earth is present actually in a galaxy which is called as Milky Way. And this Milky Way and these galaxies together with the stars, the planet and all that, it forms the universe. And when we consider Earth, Earth is just a small dot or a small speck among this very vast universe, right? And we live in this very tiny planet. So how did Earth originate? How exactly did the atmosphere of the Earth form? How different gases got formed? How exactly life got formed? And what were the theories that were put forth by various scientists to prove how exactly life originated? Did they get an answer? Exact answer is what we shall see in this particular session. So we shall learn about the origin of life. So talking about the universe, our universe is about 20 billion years old and the universe is made up of huge galaxies. And in these galaxies, there are millions to millions of stars are there and it contains lots of clouds which are made up of gas and dust. And our Earth, it is present in a galaxy which is called as Milky Way. When talking about the evolution, we all need to remember about the Big Bang theory. This is a very important concept. And they said that the earth got formed or the universe expanded because of a huge explosion that happened in the galaxies, that happened in the universe. And this huge explosion, it created the expansion of the universe. And when the universe started to expand and because of this explosion, the temperature also came down. Gases such as hydrogen and helium got formed and the gases, because of gravitational force, the gases condensed and they formed galaxies which is present in the universe in the present day. So there are various galaxies that are present. Among them, Milky Way is the one which is important because the Earth comes under the, or Earth is present in the Milky Way galaxy. So therefore, for various galaxies to be formed, which is the present day galaxies that are there, the Big Bang theory is one of the reasons. So talking about the origin of life in detail, in the solar system of the Milky Way galaxy, Earth was supposed to have been formed about 4.5 billion years before itself. But in that Earth that was supposed to be formed 4.5 billion years ago itself, there was no atmosphere. And water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide and ammonia, they got released from the molten mass which covered the surface. So that Earth which was way back before, that is before the existence of the human beings or during the prehistoric era or during the dinosaur era and all that, way back, that is about 4.5 billion years ago itself, the Earth was very hot. It was filled with volcanoes, lot of molten lavas on the surface, and because of that, a lot of water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide and all that, ammonia and all that were released from the molten lava into the atmosphere. And it is said that this actually resulted in the present day atmospheric condition that we have today. And the UV rays from the sun, it broke up water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the lighter hydrogen escaped back into the atmosphere. So we got to know that the first formed Earth that was there, it had hydrogen and also it had methane, right? It had hydrogen as well as methane. And along with that, what happened was, because of the UV rays of the sun, so the UV rays of the sun, it broke down the water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, wherein the lighter hydrogen that was there, it escaped back into the atmosphere. So these are all the theories that have been put forth by various scientists. Experimental proofs are not yet available. And oxygen that was remaining, it got combined with ammonia and methane to form water, carbon dioxide and others. So that is how in the present day earth we have carbon dioxide, oxygen and all that. So what was there in the earth billions of years ago? It mainly consisted of water and methane, and along with that, because of the large amount of volcanoes and all that erupting, and because of the heat, the water vapor escaped, and it got, and when the sun rays fell on the water droplets, it got it broke down into hydrogen and oxygen, wherein hydrogen escaped into the atmosphere is what they are claiming. And what happened to the oxygen? Oxygen combined with ammonia and methane to form water, carbon dioxide and some other forms of gases. And the ozone layer was also formed during that time. And as the earth went on cooling down, because water vapor escaped, rain started coming, the earth started cooling down because a lot of water bodies got created. And as and when the earth got cooled down, the water vapor fell as rain, that is precipitation started, and all the depressions or the crates that were there, they got filled with oceans, seas, ponds, rivers and all that. And life appeared 500 million years after the formation of the earth. The formation of the earth happened when? 4 billion years ago. But was it habitable? It was not habitable because there was no proper gaseous atmosphere was not there, no water bodies were there and all that, because oxygen, carbon dioxide and water is very, very essential for life forms to get formed. So later on what happened? Because of the eruptions of the volcanoes, the heating up of the earth, and also because of the rays of the sun falling, the water molecules got split into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen escaped and oxygen combined with methane and ammonia to form water, carbon dioxide and other gases. So therefore now we have oxygen, we have carbon dioxide also available. So when all this happened, ozone layer also got formed, and because of the formation of the ozone layer, it cut down the UV rays entering into the earth's atmosphere. Therefore the earth started to cool down, and because the earth started to cool down, precipitation happened. The water vapor that was there, it got converted into water droplets and it came down in the form of rain, and therefore whatever crates and all that were created because of the molten lava, hot molten lava that was spreading the earth's surface, all those crates or all those pits got filled with water, and therefore oceans were formed. So that is how the present day earth has been evolved from 4 billion years ago, and therefore the first life forms to appear on the earth is about in 500 million years after the earth actually got this atmosphere, water and all that. And almost the earth was formed 4 billion years back itself. So that is about the earth, how it exactly got formed and how it was made habitable. Now we know how earth became habitable. We'll look into how various scientists put forth their ideas for the origin of life. That is how exactly life appeared or organisms appeared on this planet. So some scientists believe that it came from outside, that is it came from the universe, it came from the galaxies is what they believe that, or it came from space is what they believe that. So they believe that. So the early Greek philosophers or thinkers, they thought that life existed or it came from the spores, small contents that came from the space, and they call them as spores, and these spores, they fell on the earth and they developed into new life forms. This is what they believe. So these are all just theory, because during those time science and technology was not that well developed to do experiments and find out what exactly happened or how exactly life originated on the earth. So this was about the early Greek thinkers. So what did they think? They thought that life came from the spores. So next, there is a theory which is called as panspermia theory. So according to panspermia theory, They believed that life on Earth was brought in by a meteor. So meteorites are small rocks which are made up of dust, gaseous particles and all that. They are rocky substances, and when they hit the ground on the earth, they broke into pieces, and it is from there that life originated. And some of the astronomers till date, they believe that whatever life forms are there on this planet, it was brought down from the outer space or from other spaces and galaxies and universe into our planet through the meteorite. So that is what they believe. And there is one more theory for origin of life, which is called as theory of spontaneous generation. So the name itself says theory of spontaneous generation. It says that life came from the already existing organisms that were there. So they believe that life came from decaying and rotting matter like straw, mud, etc. So they had conducted an experiment wherein what they did was they put a jar. Inside the jar they put meat, red meat, and they closed the jar with a muslin cloth or a cheesecloth. After a few days they found out that in the jar which had contained the meat, they found maggots and they found small flies. That is when they decided that okay, life existed from pre-existing life forms. That is, those life forms which are dead and rotting, from them new life forms will come. So but they didn't know that the flies came inside, it laid the eggs hatched into larvae, and then they developed into flies. That they didn't know. So therefore, according to theory of spontaneous generation, those scientists believe that life came out of a decaying and rotting matter like straw, mud, meat, etc. Next, we'll talk about the scientist Louis Pasteur. So Louis Pasteur, he conducted experiments and demonstrated that life can come only from pre-existing life forms. So life doesn't come from spontaneously, it cannot be generated by spores. Meteors did not bring life forms from other outer space into our planet, and also life doesn't spontaneously generate from rotting and decaying matter. So all that he said, it is wrong. He did conducted experiments and he said that life comes from the already existing life forms that are there. His theory is correct, but proof or evidence for that, was it available? No. So for that, he conducted an experiment. So what he took was, he took a flask which was pre-sterilized. Pre-sterilized means already it was steam sterilized, heat sterilized and all that, so that any organism or microbe growing in that will completely die. So therefore, he took a sterilized flask. What he did was, in the flask he added yeast. He killed the yeast. Again, he killed the yeast by subjecting it to high temperature. So the yeast cells will be there, but the yeast cells will be dead. It will be inactive. So he killed the yeast. That is in one flask. And in another flask, what he did was, he put the killed yeast. So this flask, what he took was, it was a swan-necked flask. So swan-necked flask, why? Because so that proper aeration can enter, but microbes or any other organism cannot enter. So in this, what he did, he took killed yeast, but closed mouth of flask. That is, he took a swan neck shaped flask so that the mouth of the flask is closed. It's not closed, but it is in such a way that microbes or other organisms cannot enter into the flask. In another set of flask, what he did was, here also he took killed yeast and he left the flask mouth open. It was open. So because it is open, whatever organisms are there in the atmosphere, bacteria, fungal spores or whatnot, it can come and settle on the killed yeast, because yeast can also act as a food source for those organisms. So that is when he proved that life exists from pre-existing life forms. That is also not true, because any organism that is dead, from that organism new life forms cannot happen. So if the yeast multiplied, then we can say that from the pre-existing yeast itself, new generations of yeast develop. But this was a different theory that he gave up. So Louis Pasteur, he did this experiment to prove that life exists from pre-existing life forms. And there is one more scientist, that is Oparin and Haldane. So two scientists, they came together to conduct experiments to prove origin of life on Earth. So Oparin is a scientist from Russia and Haldane is a scientist from England. So these two scientists, they came together and conducted experiments to prove that the first form of life could have come from pre-existing non-living organic molecules. So non-living organic molecules means we are living. In our body, we have organic molecules which are non-living, such as proteins, DNA, RNA and all that, right? So here they said that whatever RNA, protein and all that are present, or the non-living forms that are present in the living forms, inside the body of the living forms, it is from these RNA, protein and all that life actually exists, or new lives are formed. So that is what theory they put, but experiments or biochemical studies and all that was not much conducted on that. And the conditions of the earth were high temperature, and therefore Oparin and Haldane, they said that formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituents was the reason why life existed on this earth. So number of organic molecules were formed from the inorganic constituents such as RNA, proteins and all that. So that is what they believed. So that was about how life existed. So next we'll see how the early atmosphere was formed, or the current atmosphere which we have, wherein we have methane, we have nitrogen, we have hydrogen, oxygen, all that in the atmosphere. Now how that gaseous atmosphere got formed, we shall look into. So the conditions of the early earth, as I told in the previous slides, it was very high temperature because ozone layer had not formed by that time, and there was lot of volcanic eruptions and all that, resulting in volcanic storms, and also the atmosphere contained a lot of methane and ammonia. So this was the condition of the early earth's atmosphere. So from that early earth's atmosphere, which was very, very hot, which had volcanic storm, which had high amounts of methane and ammonia, from that, how did the present day atmosphere evolve? We shall look into. For that, the experiment that was conducted in the year 1953 by S.L. Miller. So we call it as Stanley Miller's experiment. Stanley experiment or Miller's experiment is what we call it. So Stanley Miller or S.L. Miller is an American scientist who created similar conditions in the laboratory. So what he did was he took a flask which was covered. So he used two flasks. This is flask number 1 and this is flask number 2. If you can see, none of the flask has an opening. It is sealed either with a tube or it is completely sealed. So what he did was, in this flask, in one of the flasks, he put boiling water. Why boiling water? Because early Earth's condition was high temperature. So we need vapor to get formed, right? So therefore, he filled it with water and he boiled it. So that boiling water, it creates vapor. Vapor or steam will be released. That vapor will move through this U-tube and it will get U-shaped tube and it will connected in the bigger flask. That is flask number 2. Now in the bigger flask, what is there? Gases is there. In that gases, what is it? It's just water vapor that is there. So now a lot of again and again water vapor escaped and it got collected here. So this changes between a liquid phase and gaseous phase. He continued doing that, and when number of gases was collected, every time what happened, the gases or water vapor whichever would get formed here, it would fall out down through the condenser and then it would get collected here. And every time the sample was taken and it was observed to study what exactly the composition is. So the researcher, what he did, or Stanley Miller, what he did was he removed the water vapor or the water vapor that was collected here, completely he removed it. Then he added methane, ammonia and hydrogen, and water also, because boiling water again keeps on sending steam. And later on what he did was he fitted two electrodes and he created electric sparks to see that when lightning happens, what happens to that particular gases that are there, because these gases are present already in the Earth's atmosphere, right? So later on they got to know that the present day atmosphere is being formed because of the lightning, because of the electric charges that are discharged by the lightning, because of the heating of the earth, which resulted in collection of water vapor, along with that methane and ammonia gas. So all these contributed to the formation of the present day atmosphere that is there. So this was their experiment, and there was some similar experiments that was conducted, and he observed that amino acids got formed in this particular when electric discharge or electric current was passed to the gases that was filled in. So that is what he found out, that amino acids were formed, and amino acids are very, very important because whatever protein is there, it is nothing but chains of amino acids in a body, and any organism for that matter contains proteins, and their proteins are nothing but chains of amino acids. So for life to get formed also, amino acid is very, very important. So in similar experiments, others observed formation of sugars, nitrogenous bases, and nitrogen bases and all that is important for our DNA, right? Because the genetic material that needs to be formed also requires the DNA or the RNA requires nitrogenous bases, pigments and fats, all that got formed. And not just that, later on scientists do, because of the advancement of the technology and all that, later on whatever meteorites had fallen on the earth during the dinosaur era and all that, they collected that, they analyzed the meteorite sample, and in that meteorite sample they found similar compounds. They found all these compounds which were found out by Stanley and Miller and other scientists also. And that is why they got to know that, okay, how life forms are forming in our planet. Similarly, in the outer space also, they have the same chemical compositions where life forms could have been formed. So this was about this experiment. But still, though a lot of experiment has been conducted, till date, we have no complete evidence of exactly how life formed on this planet, and still the search is going on exactly how did life form on this planet. So this was about the session wherein we learned about how exactly the life formed on this planet and how exactly the atmosphere with the various gases got created. In that, Stanley Miller's experiment is one of the important experiments that you need to study because it can come up for a 5-mark question. In the next session, we'll learn about evolution of life forms, that is the various theories that have been put forth by Darwin, by Lamarck. So what are those theories? Or Darwin's theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of natural selection, all that theory of evolution and natural selection, all that we will study in the coming session. So see you in the coming session with this new topic. Thank you.